Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today.
Good morning, friends. I'm Pastor Chuck Blair. Great to have you joining us here today. And what we're looking at is this rather challenging concept of when do we draw the line? And it's a service that is, boy, it's been a challenge putting it together because there's so many different answers to it. It was interesting when we were doing the service last week, one of the things we talked about was, what are the troubles that are troubling your heart right now? We got a number of responses, some of them later on in the week from folks texting. There's a lot of hard situations out there where we're wondering, where exactly do I draw the line? With family, with friends, with community, where do you do it? And when do you do it? And we're going to be looking at that over the next couple of weeks. This week I'm going to talk about it. Next week Reverend Alan Cowley's going to take over and talk about it because it is something we wrestle with. And maybe today, maybe the best we can get is this idea that the wrestling is good. It's good that we wrestle with these things because what we're trying to find, what we're trying to get to when we look at when do we draw the line is this idea of clarity. Clarity in one word is the answer, but clarity is sometimes hard to find. Sometimes we can find it very quickly, very rapidly. All of a sudden, like, there's the event, we're really clear. Something's been challenged. We know that it's when we look at God and look at God's providence and God's love and God's way of working in the world, we know that this is a clear violation of that moral order, and we can step right in. And some of the time, that can be so powerful. I was at some of you have probably heard this story before. This was a few years back. And I was at a football game. It's cold outside. This is my first time actually seeing an NFL game here in Philadelphia. And this fan pours a beer on the fan in front of him who's from the opposing team. And the little 15-year-old in me who went to Knock High School and felt bullied was like, this is wrong. And it was like ABC after school special. And I like jump in and say, dude, you can't do that. That was really simple. Plus I had 4 friends right behind me. That was really simple. That was a simple one, when to draw the line, because that was bullying. And probably 99% of us would do the same thing. But then there's other ones that just take time. And the clarity is elusive. And by clarity, this is a big check just to throw in the back of our minds. By clarity, I don't mean we're clear that we're right and they're wrong. It's clarity that this is what alignment looks like. This is what God would have me do. And I'm going to let go of the results. I'm going to have clarity about action. And I'm going to take those steps. That can take a long time. And so we're going to be sort of touching on both throughout the service today. And we're going to look at it within this context that first off, starting out, like drawing lines is a good thing from a Swedenborgian tradition. Even the good old angels draw lines on occasion. And we know as well that Jesus drew lines. That he had lots of time where he's like, yep, here's the line. Now, most of the time, when we look at a line, right, it's easy to look at a line and to think, oh, here's the line, and it's, again, dividing right and wrong. Jesus a lot of time was drawing lines, but he did so in a very loving way. What you've done to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you've done to me. There's a line that he drew, but it's got an overwhelming amount of grace in it. And then there are times where he clearly draws a much harder line. And as we're looking at this story, just think of some of the issues, friends, that you might wrestle with. When should we speak? When should we remain silent? When do we take a stand? When do we simply listen? When do we stay fully engaged in a relationship? When is it the time to step back? Not easy answers here. And we see, again, Jesus doing so many different things. And one of the times where we really see him drawing a very stark line is the story of the money changers. Now, let me give you the context to that. The temple in Jerusalem was like the Vatican. It was the central part of the Jewish faith. And it wasn't just a place you went to synagogue. It was the Holy of Holies, quite literally. And the way that it was set up was you sort of had an inner court and an outer court. And on the outer court, if you think of the lobby here in our building here at the Mitchell Performing Arts Center, you had the outer court there and then the inner court in here. And what people had done over the years is they had set up tables. And the tables were a barrier of entry into the inmost. And I mean, I think you can see the obvious metaphor here. They were essentially had become a blockage. Now, how were they a blockage? Well, they were physically a blockage because you were to go and do certain sacrifices. That was part of the tradition at that time. And so you had animals out there, specifically doves, etc. And they would charge people that. Now, think of the price. It's the price you would charge knowing that that's the only place you could get the sacrifice. It was the only place you could get close to God. I mean, talk about, not to be cute, but talk about pricing power, right? I mean, that's just wide open to extortion. And the sad part is extortion with a religious patina to it. And Jesus is like, no. This does not work. You can't block people from their access to God. You can't block their access to the higher and better angels of their nature. And so as I read this part of the story, again, and from the New Church tradition, we tend to listen to things on two tiers. One is, yep, this is about the way communities can function sometimes, but most importantly, they're also about our heart. Those pieces of us that are somehow blocking access to the better angels of our nature in ways that aren't good. Where we need to be clear, we need to draw the line. So let's take a look at this passage here, friends. This is from Matthew 21. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. Now, it's interesting with those selling doves because for the poorest of the poor, the doves that was the sacrifice you could afford even at an exorbitant price. It's written, he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers. The blind and the lame came to him. That goes on to say, the blind and the lame came to him at the temple after he'd overthrown the tables, and he healed them. Beautiful line there. So we're going to look at this story and use this story as a way, maybe by the end of today's service, maybe we can just have a little bit more clarity. And the last thing we want, and I say this with a smile, last thing we want is everybody rushing out to their cars or rushing, if you're watching at home, hopping on the internet to go set somebody straight at the end of today's service. That's not it. That's not it. Today, the prayer really is for clarity. Clarity inside, clarity outside, and that beautiful alignment that can really create a lot of power in our lives. But it's not power that's about us being right, others being wrong. It's not about a pyramid where we're at the top and everyone else is below. It's not mercy as a king would have it. It's mercy as Jesus would have us practice it. This soft, soft mercy where we're all on the same level and we're all trying to call each other to the better angels, to the best angels of our nature. So as we often do here at New Church Live, we start with a question. And the question we have for today is a pretty simple one, which is, where do you struggle to draw the line? Where do you struggle to draw the line? And what you can do is you can text me an answer, 215-740-3662. That's 215-740-3662. We'd love to get those responses. And we're actually going to be using these over the next couple of weeks as we look at this and we wrestle with this. So friends, we are so humbled, grateful, and glad that you're joining us. We have people joining us from all over the country. We have people joining us from other countries. It's wonderful to have you here as part of our little church in this little endeavor to maybe make the world a little kinder. Thank you for being here. Welcome, friends. Welcome to New Church Live.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Great to be here. The storm is coming, but I don't mind. People are dying. I close my blinds. All that I know is I'm breathing now. I want to change the world. Instead, I sleep. I want to believe in more than you and me. But all that I know is I'm breathing. All I can do is keep breathing. All we can do is keep breathing now. All that I know is I'm breathing. All I can do is keep breathing. All we 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 can do is keep breathing now. Thank you.
It's beautiful. And isn't it nice having Emily back? Emily, welcome back. Good to have you back. I was smiling with Emily, like she came out and they were practicing here, and somebody immediately from the stage, from the audience goes, "Welcome back, Emily." And I'm thinking, no one does that when I come back after vacation. So it's wonderful to have you folks here. And again, thinking about this and this idea of clarity and how do we really get that clarity? Because clarity has in it this peace. It has this peace. And it's a much better place to take a stand from when we have that peace. It's not easy. I love the phrase, that we need a soft front, we need a strong back. I think that's very true. And there's a peacefulness that can elude us sometimes as we're trying to figure it out. And sometimes I feel that it's at least for me, it feels so much easier to just like not involve myself or to pull away, where maybe there is a place for clarity. And maybe there is a place for a little bit of that uncomfortable struggle. So as we look at that, friends, I want to start out with sort of a bigger piece of theology here. And this is all aligned with like, how do we get to that clarity? Again, and it's not a clarity of, well, thank goodness, I finally figured out I am right and you have finally figured out you are wrong. It's not that. So we're going to take a look at a piece of New Church theology here. And it's a beautiful phrase, and it talks about this idea that goodness recognizes the truth that belongs to it, and truth recognizes the goodness that belongs to it, which is it's a very thick theological language, granted. But the point behind it actually, I think, is pretty simple. So friends, think of it this way. The idea of goodness recognizes, and you could think love recognizes the truth that belongs to it. Let's make that really personal. If you really love someone, and you're looking at them, and you're looking at their life, you're going to see a more accurate truth of who they actually are. It's why I wonder, and I say this both tongue-in-cheek, but also seriously, that's why I wonder if sometimes if a really good grandparent might see other people the best out of anybody, might see a grandchild the most accurately. Because that love really pulls out from that other person. I can really see who they are. And there's this real clarity around that. Now, if the good stuff is true, well, the bad stuff is true too, in a way. So let's erase that image of a very loving person seeing somebody that they happen to love and really being able to see the truth about them. Now imagine instead you have somebody who's really angry, filled with a lot of vitriol. And they look at that same person. What are the odds they're going to see them accurately? Take a guess. I don't think very high. Because that idea of hatred, what hatred wants to see is not the truth of the person, but falsity. Our own particular judgments of them. And that's why we have to be careful on our search for clarity. And really as best we can, continue to come back again and again to the starting point, which is so much about love. Can we keep on remembering about love again and again and again? Because that is what really gives us a clarity. And what happens here, friends, and this was a phrase I've been playing around with, looking at this sermon, and I think this is really important. I love in that quote the word recognize. Cognition is thought, recognition. So it helps us to rethink, to recalibrate. When we look at it with the eyes of love, we'll recalibrate and we'll see the truth, and it really will be the truth. And sadly, the same thing, if we look at somebody out of real anger or hatred, same thing. It'll recalibrate how we see that person. And we'll see them actually with a lot less accuracy. As you look at this creates an incredible power, which is the power of recognition. The word recognize, again in the quote, the power of recognition, where we can look at something and we can see it with clarity and we can see, oh, this is clear. I can see this picture. This is clear. This is who this person is. And notice, friends, that even with that, when we're coming from that love and we're searching for that clarity, it takes away so much judgment. Now, it gives us a firm place to stand. We can clearly demarcate. This is where the stand needs to be made. But there's not a lot of judgment to it. There's not a lot of sorting them into this box or this box. Because I do think some of the time when we draw lines, sometimes we can get a little enamored with that too, where we're drawing lines everywhere. Not everything is a cause for drawing a line. But there are those times where it's incredibly important to do that. So friends, when we look at that, we can look at it just generically when we draw the line. These are just some ideas, and again, we're going to look at these this week. We're going to look at them next week with Reverend Alan Callie. When God calls us to, from this sense of clarity, where between the harmed and the harm, how with love, clarity, and courage. That's just one possible way you could look at this whole thing. And regardless of any kind of formula, I think a lot of it's not an engineering problem. It's a biology problem. It's not where we can come up with a list of how to draw lists. It's not if we can come up with a list or how to draw lines. It's where we have to get some clarity around all the different factors at play and start to see that and start to see this from these eyes of grace that show, oh yeah, this is the human condition. These are the things that we all wrestle with. So I want to show you a picture, and we've used this picture, I think, 3 or 4 times in church because over the 20 years, 19 years of New Church Live, because I think this picture really shows like, oh yeah, here is this wrestling. Here's this picture where we look at it and there's this instant power of recognition. And it shows all the things we wrestle with. This famous picture here. So the background to this picture, this is during the Civil Rights era. There are marchers and they've come over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And as they've come over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, all these troopers, led by Bull Connor, have come out to meet them, and they've told them to disperse. And the picture, there's so many parts to it, friends, like so many parts. Notice how the marchers, notice how they're holding their hands. Notice the police. And again, this is not about throwing the police under the bus. This is to say these are dilemmas, these are challenging. Where's the line? When do we draw it? And then the most interesting group to me, personally, for years, has been all those people in the background behind the cars. All those people. Just simply observing, not taking part of, not being part of. So when we look at this, friends, when we look at this let's pull this into the idea of tables, right? Now again, it's very simple and very easy given our humanity, and very understandable. We all do it. To again, it's not about clarity around principle. It's what we tend to do is clarity with a small c, which is I'm right, you're wrong, end of story. But I think this story, and this is where it's tough, because I yearn to like give a list. I yearn to be like, here's the answer to it. But this is what we wrestle with. So if you take, for example, the things you're wrestling with, there were some beautiful ones that people texted me backstage. These beautiful ones that people wrestle with. And where they're having a hard time drawing a line. Here that is. And as you're looking at that, what's the table in your heart that needs to be turned over? What's the part where you kind of need God to come in and clean house for a little bit? Because that's where you'll get the clarity. I don't think we'll get it most of the time by hubris and like, I am so glad that I understand. Sorry for them that they don't. It's much more of this introspection. And again, they really might not be getting it, by the way. They really might not. But the clarity to address it is going to come when we're aware what are the tables in our life that need flipped over. Now, when you look at that picture, right, there's a number of tables there, I think, that are just really, really basic, and ones we can see wrestling with. I think about the marchers, the marchers in that scene, and what did they have to, what table did they needed God to flip over that allowed them to do that, allowed them to make that march? This one just amazes me with this picture. The man there on the left in the front with the long tan jacket, what table did he need flipped over in his heart that he kept his hands in his pockets? Like, oh my goodness. What had to shift for him to do that? It's Ralph Abernathy, by the way, to put a name to it. And what parts of fear had to be flipped over? What parts of impatience needed to be flipped over? What parts of, oh, really, this is about us versus them, and instead had to be about, no, this is about us. Us. What needed to be flipped over to do that? And I think with the police officers on the left, like clearly, prejudice, this way too much into like law and order without any moral part of it, like clearly that needed to be flipped over in their lives. And again, don't want to throw those people under the bus because, they're living in a time, they're living in a culture where they, I'm sure, felt that they were defending something. And when you look at it, I think, this is like a whole nother, I'm going to go to a big aside over here. What God yearns to do in life when we get clear, and we take the stands, we draw the lines that we're supposed to draw. They're clear with God, not about me being right, you being wrong. And they're just clear. It's not only the oppressed who are free, it's the oppressors who are free. God's out to free everyone in that picture. And then the people in the background, you think about the tables that maybe they needed to have flipped over. Now, they're not in this picture, but maybe down the road they did, which is this picture of like apathy, none of my business. I'm just gonna stand on the sidelines and have an opinion. Yeah, our opinions change nothing, by the way. They weren't taking any active steps. But I think you can see from this picture, there's so much wrestling going on. And again, it's a biology problem because it's all these different inputs. And there's all this different ways that we have to bring this grace and this mercy to a tableau like this. And so let's go back to Jesus and the money changers here. This painting. We see this absolute part in him that is clear. And so when we think about when we draw the line, that's what I want to talk about now is shift into when we draw the line. Like when is it that we do it? When can we start? And again, friends, this is sort of a buffet. This is a number of ideas. Pick the ones that really you feel resonate with you and what you're wrestling with today as we speak to these. The first one, friends, is the idea of a clear goal and not destroying but restoring. Not destroying but restoring. There's a clear goal, and it's not about destruction. It's about restoration. That higher thing. Now this, oftentimes this particular kind of passage is very easily misunderstood because we sort of stick with the money changers, and it's clear God sort of is a God of wrath, and it can be used to justify wrathful actions, again, in the name of God. And what we do is it's really our own agenda, but we're shoving it in there, and we're putting a religious patina on it. That's not what this is about. You've got to be so careful with that. This is about when we can really see, that when we're really clear, the goal here is restoration of something. Jesus didn't come in to destroy the temple. He came in to restore access for life born anew. For this idea of communities of grace that were filled where there was no, blockage between people and God. There's no intermediaries in any way, shape, or form. And as we look at that, friends, and this is a beautiful passage that we can look at so many levels, the passage from John 15, greater love has no man than this, than that a man lay down his life for his friends. Well, when we start to see the when, oftentimes we're asked to sort of lay down our life. Now, what does that mean? Well, I think when we look at laying down our life and how it connects with tables, so much of that is laying down those things that we can really cherish, but they're not healthy things. Laying down gossip, vengeance, anger, despair, rage. Those marchers, they had to lay that down. And again, who are they laying it down for? Their friends. And it's not, notice the way I pointed here, it's not just their friends. It's their friends. Jesus' one of the most beautiful lines is I call you friends. Think about it. This is the God of the universe. And he says, I call you friends. That's very powerful stuff. Because when we get to that piece, friends, and we start to lay that down, then there is a clarity that starts to happen because all the noise and the static, it just sort of goes away. Friends, just This would be a whole dinner question. How smart are you when you're angry? I'm here to tell you, you're dumb as a rock, and so am I. People are dumb when they come from anger. They do dumb things. That's why, we get angry and we break stuff. Like, that makes a difference. It just doesn't work. And that's not clarity. And that isn't to say there aren't times for anger. There obviously are, in terms of zeal. Anger that's there because there's such a miscarriage of something. But we don't want to live in that place because, again, that's not the place where wisdom will come from. So we have to lay down our lives. We have to put that down. And again, notice the clarity here. It's the clarity of something greater than ourselves. That's why, I don't know how many times a year, probably 4 or 5 times a year, just really enjoy reading, almost anything by Martin Luther King because he has that in spades. He totally gets that and totally articulates that about what this was all about. Then, friends, when we look at that, when we look at the when, I think then we can start to imagine this. And again, this is a hodgepodge of ideas, just some different things, and these come out courtesy of we had a wonderful sermon writing team on Thursday where we talked about this. Here are just some ideas. One of the keys is 3 gates. Is it kind? Is it true? Is it useful? And again, doesn't mean, friends, notice it doesn't say polite. Because it's kind. We're going to be coming from love, and we're going to say the words with kindness. It's true. We know these things to be true. And that, again, gets back to the highest truths that we can imagine. And we know that it's going to be useful. It's going to make a difference in this point. It's going to be able to make a difference down the road for this person, for their relationships, for their community, for our relationships, for us. It's going to be a useful thing to do. And this other part, a prayer for God to give you the words and the opportunity. That one's incredibly powerful. Because get into the practice as best you can. And again, this is about progress, not perfection. It's not something we figure out. This is more like biology. We have all these inputs working back and forth, not a strict engineering problem. That idea of being so clear around it, so clear that we can just, be prayerful to God. Like, God, if I'm supposed to say something, give me the words, number 1, and the opportunity, number 2. The words and the opportunity. Now, are there times where we need to force something? Obviously, yes. But a lot of the time, this works really well. Now, a caveat with this, friends, I think that's really important is, this came up again in sermon writing team. Like, we're talking about this, somebody's bringing this up and all this consideration, and somebody says, yeah, but you know what? Sometimes you just have to act. And I want to say that too. Sometimes you don't want to go through a big analysis. You want to just do. So let's hold that as well. And looking, friends, at what we have to understand, because it is so hard to do. It's difficult. It's difficult to say something. It's difficult to do something. It's difficult to let God, knock over the tables. And, looking at this when we were talking about it, here's a couple of ones that came up. When enabling replaces loving, when fear silences conscience. When enabling replaces loving. That one's. I think we probably all do that. I think if you are a parent of any sort or a caretaker of any sort, you're going to wrestle with that one. That is really difficult because it's so easy to just be so worried about how our child or grandchild, whatever, looks at us that we might not say the things that we need to say or do the things that we need to do from that clear part that's aligned. That's really difficult. And my prayer, my heart just goes out to people who wrestle with this. I hear about this all the time. It is really difficult to do this well. And the second part of it, friends, is when fear silences conscience. As someone who has enjoyed for decades, looking at World War II history, It's interesting, right? You look at World War II history and how many people, were involved in things that were wrong, and they just, I'm thinking of the ultimate example, Nazi Germany, and they just knew it was wrong. Like, the part of them just knew it. Just knew it. But despite knowing it, there was this huge fear, and that silenced their conscience. Something that they knew. And that's why the Dietrich Bonhoeffers of the world, those who don't know him, Lutheran pastor, very famous, read about him, he's phenomenal, Google him. That's why people like that are so incredibly powerful. And then when we do that, friends, when we can go through these exercises of alignment, the power of recognition, thinking kind, true, and useful, thinking through as well, God, give me the words and the opportunity, being clear of what might be getting in the way, being willing to let the tables be turned over in our heart first, we really will find a certain clarity. And you know how I think you'll know it? Because it'll feel calm. It'll feel at peace. It'll feel detached from the results because you're doing what's right.
Casts a long shadow. I know that I lie in it and let it rule my mind from time to time. Escaping an old battle clings on like a vine to me, whispers dirty lies in my ear. I know we didn't start this fight, and I won't let it rule my heart tonight. I can change, I can change, I can still change, I can still change. Tracing an old pattern, drawing the lines from where I am and from where I wanna be. Forget that old adage that history continues to keep us from the world we wanna see. I am scared that I won't get it right, but fear won't rule my heart tonight. I can change, I can change, I can still change, I can still change. I can change, I can change, I can still change, I can still change. Thank you.
I love that song, and and the power of change, that God is always giving us this opportunity towards freedom. I mean, freedom is the apple of God's eye. And it's freedom where we're freed from all that stuff. Again, think of the money changers here. Think of the table being overturned. Like, again, God's really trying to free us in that story. He's trying to free them. Freeing them so that there's this access, so there's this way that we can access something that is all about the higher angels of our nature. And there's a beautiful prayer we're going to close with today, because I think this prayer really helps us to think about when to draw the line. So before giving you this prayer, just a little background to it. This prayer is often used in the 12-step tradition. In the 12-step tradition, and it comes in many different facets. 12-step tradition was this program where people get clear about what they're powerless over. Could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be sex addiction, could be any number of things. They get clear about what they're not able to overcome, and clear that they're powerless over it. That's the I can't, God, I can't. Then it's the asking of God, you can do something about it. So turning over our life and our will to God as we understand him. And then there's this beautiful part, I can't, you can, I'm asking, this prayerful part of like supplication. Really asking God for the help. And that's why this prayer is used so often. It's a beautiful prayer. So the prayer is this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. That's so good. And you see, friends, like this is so hard. I wish I had great language, because I don't. It's like that. There's so much clarity embedded in that. Right? Because there's no more desire to be right. This is about something much bigger. Lord, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Going up to the mountaintop, so to speak, to use Martin Luther King's words. And when we see that, friends, we can see this beautiful way that can work. And again, this can work in very personal ways in our life. And it just is, I want to just show you this. Just think of, again, the marchers there. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and to wisdom to know the difference. Those marchers had figured out what it was they could do, what it was they could change. And I think they'd probably figured out what it was they couldn't. And it's not just about these big issues like civil rights. I mean, many of the things that were texted back, and thank you so much. It's just wonderful to hear from folks. Some of them were really family oriented, which is in some ways, I don't want to say harder, but some days it feels a lot harder. Where do you draw a line? In relationships, in community, in tighter communities. Where do you do that? And that's where, again, I think the wrestling really matters. But we're just trying to look at those things. Again, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and wisdom is knowing the difference between those two things. And when you get clear on that, draw the line. Draw the line. Now, to close, let's close the way this story closes. So Jesus turns over the tables, kicks out the money changers. And then there's this beautiful next line to it, incredibly powerful next line. The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. Oh, so good. That idea about the healing presence of the Lord, and when we can get rid of this, we get clear of what this is, and let him turn it over, there is a healing that takes place. And those parts of us that are blind, and those parts of us that can't move, that's where Jesus is inviting those parts in to be healed, to be changed, to be shifted. But it's an alignment like this, an alignment with God. It's a powerful place. It's where the promise comes true. I do think the blind and the lame, like some of them were those money changers. Again, he's out to heal them as well as to heal all the parts of us. So friends, simple takeaway for the week. When you're thinking about when to draw the line, one word: clarity. Clarity inside, clarity outside, and then act. That simple and that hard. So that's today's service. Again, we'll be looking at this from a slightly different angle next week. We certainly hope you can join us with Reverend Alan Cowley. We've got a lot more good stuff to talk about in this topic. And with that, I'm going to shift gears now. And what we're going to shift gears to is the close of our service, which is where we do a little prayer, the Our Father prayer, and then a little blessing, and we'll send you on your way. And a final song, by the way. So please join me. Lord, thank you for your presence here today. And Lord, what our prayer is for today is clarity. Clarity inside and clarity outside. The clarity inside, Lord, is that alignment to the better angels of our nature, to your truth, to your word, to how you're moving our conscience forward. Alignment to all those higher things, which is the ultimate integrity, Lord. Help us to find that clarity. And then, Lord, from that place, help us to realize the blocks that are in the way, to let those go, and to live lives with clarity on the outside. Where there are lines, but the lines are always this: lines of love, care, mercy, truth with a capital T. Truth aligned, filled with your grace, your peace, your joy, your way of life. Our ego quieted, our spirit alive. Thank you, Lord, for being here today. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. Have a great week, friends.
It's been a long, dark night, and I've been waiting for the morning. It's been a long, hard fight, but I see a brand new day dawning. I've been looking for the sunshine. You know I ain't seen it in so long, but everything's gonna work out just fine, and everything's gonna be alright. It's been all wrong, 'cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. It's been a long, long time since I've known the taste of freedom and those clinging vines that had me bound. Well, I don't need them. Oh, I've been like a captured eagle. You know, an eagle's born to fly. Now that I see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. See the light of a clear blue morning. Oh, I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. Oh, I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. Thank you so much. Some Dolly Parton to end it. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you very much.